because I want to show you the various entities that we're going to be talking about tonight. Because again, guys, there are a ton of people making a ton of money doing this critical race theory stuff. Tonight, we're going to talk about various people and various entities. We're going to talk about lobbyists, right? Because we've been talking about that. We're going to talk about people that are sitting on the school board making absolute wads of cash. These are good gigs if you can get it, right? And so the point is, we got to get our stuff together out here and make sure that people aren't getting it. Here's how it works. So when we're talking about the money, right, you'll see up at the top, this is how some of the money comes in for some of this stuff. So we've got the state, that means the state taxpayers. I think over 50% of the state's budget actually goes to education. And then you've got money coming in for the feds. That goes to the DPI. So the Department of Instruction or Public Instruction, that's kind of the piggy bank, right? That's where the money is dispersed. And it can go to usually consultants for teacher training. So the goal or the objective really with the DPI is sort of an administrator level, but they are absolutely in charge of teacher training pretty much writ large. The district does their own, but the state does their own as well. So what we have also, and then money goes into the districts, primarily from the feds as well, where these ESSER grants that we've been talking a lot about, they're going to come in through the DPI for use in teaching critical race theory and dispersed to the districts. So that's who's making money. Well, the state is making money and the districts and the consultants, which we'll talk a little bit about. Now, we have a very interesting and distressing and utterly corrupt situation in the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction because Catherine Truitt's right-hand man, who bills himself as a Republican, is actually married to a lobbyist who sells not one, not two, but three products related to the social-emotional learning that is critical race theory, we know, and critical race theory itself. So we've got a special interest group that is right in there. We think it's an ethics breach that's right in there also getting money. So you've got a lot of people inside of the DPI getting paid and a lot of money going as a pass-through to the DPI.
Hillary McKenzie, the president of the Orange County School Board, has previously been on record on a public Twitter account, which is now, I think she stopped. I think she ended her account. I'm not sure. That CRT was not in schools. I've seen emails where she's lectured parents, not only parents, but parents who are lawyers, on how CRT is a legal theory and therefore can't possibly be in K through 12 schools, etc. And these parents tried to call her on it. They were able to find some trainings which involved Bettina Love, etc.
So this what we're seeing here isn't going on in schools.
Right. So this picture is so this is what I'm going to talk about. This is the organization. One of them is part of this whole network called We Are, which is working to extend anti-racist education, I believe, started by a PhD from UNC who is a specialist in her own words, in CRT, whiteness, and white children's racial identities. This is from a summer camp. She runs summer camps for children. This was publicly posted on their website. And if you see everything in a child's worldview, according to this camp, goes into or comes from racism. So I just see this picture and I just think this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. One of the more ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Well, Nancy, now you're being racist.
Yeah, right. That's Miss McKenzie did infer that, yes, I was racist because I criticized this. So anyway, I don't understand this picture at all. It's completely mind-blowing. I think it's very sad. Yeah. So I became aware of that group because the founder, who was pictured in that picture, had spoken at my kid's elementary school, private school, and they had invited her secretly, and gosh knows how much money. And I was like, well, I'm not paying tuition for this stuff. So I've been very aware of this anti-racist group for a while. And I know that Hillary McKenzie is also aware of them and had a child attend that group from her social media posts.
So what are we looking at here? Because this is the one you went and got the FOIA on.
Yeah, so I FOIA'd them to see if there were any email communications between the We Are and the members of the board. And sure enough, there were. In fact, the board of Orange County schools came up with this equity policy. And part of that policy was they had to go to equity training as a board, or diversity training as a board, even though the board members already had been to other training themselves through Racial Equity Institute, etc. So their equity officer, Dina Keeling, gave them a couple choices. They chose We Are. Hillary had an email in there. Miss McKenzie had an email in there about how she liked the camp, her daughter went to the camp, etc. And
just to deconfuse, We Are is the name of a consultant group. So remember when I showed you guys this schematic of all of these groups that are making money hand over fist? We Are is the name of one of those groups.
It's an anti-racist education group based on critical race theory, because the founder herself says that she's a specialist in CRT and whiteness and white children's racial identity.
How much? Okay, so we're looking. Okay, sorry about that. So you see their logo up there, Nancy. How much did we pay? Now, so and we comes from 3 different places in this instance. It comes from your county commissioners, your property tax. It comes from the state and the feds. Mm-hmm. So how much was it?
So they said for the contract read for 6 hours of training was $2,000. So that's over $300 an hour of being trained in quote unquote equity, which is, according to their agenda printed there, included how to resist or resistance timelines or something like that, how to be an activist for change, or how to use your board for change. Basically, activist-based methodology. I don't have the actual slides or information from the individual presentation, but there were also hours about implicit bias, etc., and systemic racism. So, I mean, I'm happy to tell people how racist they are for $300 an hour. If anyone wants to hire me, that's more than you make as a surgeon.
Why are we here?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? By the way, we're volunteers at this point.
You're biased. Pay me.
So, yeah, exactly. I'd be more than happy to do that.
So the board went as a whole to this location where they have We Are has its business, paid $2,000 for a 6-hour training session, well, 7 hours including lunch, for a 6-hour session in anti-racist activism. And you might hear 2,000 think, oh, no big deal. But when you break it down for 6 hours, that's $300 plus an hour. That's unbelievable. Like, I want to get the teacher listserv of Orange County and send out that, hey, guess what? They're paying this PhD, who's a specialist in white children's racial identities, over $300 an hour for her expertise. How many textbooks? How many free lunches? How many pencils? How many uniforms for an athletic team? How many supplies? How many lunch boxes can you buy kids? Like, I mean, teachers, what are they making an hour? And meanwhile, these are the same people making $300 an hour on this questionable theory stuff, who are mandating like universal minimum wage and all of this stuff while they're raking in $300 an hour. So it's just, the hypocrisy is mind blowing. And I mean, I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah, so we're breaking this down for you guys. I mean, what this is spending taxpayer money for racial propaganda. It's taxpayer money for racial propaganda. These are the sort of things that the United States used to be very, very vocal against in the UN on the Human Rights Commission. When you're paying for money for racial propaganda, we know through history that usually leads to a genocide down the road, right? It leads to things that we don't ever want to see. And so again, the U.S. has been very, very taking the lead on this role within the UN, and we're actually doing it in the United States. This is a mass taxpayer-funded program of child abuse. I mean, you saw the picture just a second ago we put up there with a big old thing that says racism with little first graders in there listening to this. It's absolute ridiculous, and it's nonsense.
And it also that they're lying, because Hillary McKenzie has been on record, the president of the board, is saying, oh no, there's no CRT.
It's so critical. Yeah.
Well, then why is your board going to a specialist in CRT who's a specialist on whiteness, learning about implicit bias and activism, and paying them $300 an hour?
This is for the school board, correct?
Right, for the school board.
Right. So I want to make this distinction. The teachers have been hammered like hell on the inside, right? Getting these equity trainings. I mean, really, we're looking at Charlotte Mecklenburg. They've gotten diversity trainings to the exclusion of any other professional development for the entire school year. So if you're trying to onboard students who have had a hard time learning gaps, etc., they're training exclusively in that, right? And so again, the taxpayer money is going for that, and now we're actually training the board. I mean, this is beyond ridiculous. And again, I'm telling you guys right now, we have to have the let's roll mentality. We must storm the freaking cockpit. We have to divest and defund. Defund the police. They were big into that. We have to defund each and every single one of these programs, because I'm telling you, once kids get back into school, once the masks come off, etc., you're looking at a very, very well-financed and well-trained group of teachers, now board members, ready, willing, and able to start teaching your kids racism, or worse yet, start to scapegoat, stereotype, and collectively punish them.
And they got it to me. I have also asked for information from the NCDPI, and I'm not asking them every day. This was a first request from me to them, and it wasn't even half as much information as what I asked for from OCS. And they said they would charge me. I would need to pay over several hundred dollars for that information. And since then, I narrowed down my request even further. It's very minimal, and sent it in, and it's been about a week. I haven't heard anything. But the lack of transparency is really concerning, and they definitely don't want to hand that stuff out to anyone who potentially could criticize them.
Well, again, I mean, lots of money is being made, Nancy. I mean, look, you're talking about these contracts. I mean, you could technically, do 10 or 20 of those trainings in a year, and you've got a damn good business. And so, they're not stupid. They don't want to do this. And people that are lobbying, I mean, before we investigated this Falconberry claim, we had no earthly idea people were lobbying. It was just, we had no idea. But, the lobbyists are making big, big bucks. Again, they're being paid to influence these lobbyists and then cutting the people out. So the public's being lied to or charged for documents, and the lobbies are getting a payday up in Raleigh. It's got to come to an end.
Yeah. And the scary thing is, with the revisit of 324 that I mentioned earlier about how it's an anti-business bill, I really like that part of the bill because it would curb these anti-racist, or these entities that use scapegoating and all of that from making their $300 an hour. And like the Ibram X. Kendi issue in Charlotte, where he was paid gobs of money for like an hour. The redone version, if I read it correctly, it's the NCDPI gets to hold the power as to what kind of training and stuff the schools can and cannot do, or who they can hire as a consultant. So to me, it's a little bit of the fox guarding the hen house, because these people are already in the DPI. I mean, they're already buddies. So
let's back that up.
From them.
Right. And so what you're saying, Nancy, is you and I mean, look, first of all, I've been a journalist for a very long time. The first and only time I've ever been charged for any documents has been with the North Carolina Department of Instruction, headed by Catherine Truitt. That is not a transparent organization. It's not right, and it's not proper. So this Bill 324, the anti-critical race theory bill, what it does is it leaves the Department of Instruction as the administrator for this particular bill. And now what that means is this: if you've got a training like what Nancy exposed in Orange County, if we've got the trainings in Charlotte, which we've exposed, we can no longer go to the district and say, hey, we need the documents. Parents, you can no longer go to the district and say, hey, we need to find out about the trainings. You must now go to the Department of Public Instruction. They are not giving us the documents for equity training. They're charging me $1,500. Nancy, they told you it would be at least several $100s. Mm-hmm. So they know that charging hundreds of dollars is going to keep the information about these nefarious trainings out of the hands of the people. These documents These documents belong to the people. These people work for us. Again, it's time to roll, you guys. We cannot allow
on their website now. They're saying, even on their website, on where you go to request the public record, it's been a change since a month or two ago, where now they just say outright, due to the legislative policy for public records requests, if something, if they deem it is a lot of work or whatever, which is very subjective, they'll charge. So they're, from the get-go, they're saying, be careful what you ask for, we're going to charge you. I find it, I don't know. It's
inappropriate. It's bad. It's bad policy. Roger, you're exactly right. And if